I'm so glad I met Jake earlier this year. And as you can tell, I'm a big fanboy of his brand, Fair Harbor, and they've been growing like a weed, north of $50 million in revenue now. In this episode, you'll learn about all the quirky growth hack techniques he had, whether it was putting massive banners on airplanes across the coasts of Florida and California, a Kickstarter campaign that raised, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then, or his radio ads, which who does radio anymore? It's working for him. Remember, if you enjoyed the show today, guys, make sure that you leave a review. That's what our team wants these days. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
Explore the minds and marketing strategies behind today's winning brands and businesses. Tap into the power of the creator economy with Earned by Creator IQ. Here's Connor Begley.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Earn. Today, I've got Jake Danehy on the show today. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Oh, Connor, great to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And before I get too much into Jake, I have to show just how much of a fanboy I am of his brand, Fair Harbor. So I've got a Fair Harbor hat. He has sent me a Fair Harbor Hawaiian shirt, my own. And I've also got Fair Harbor shorts on that you can't see underneath the camera as well. So I'm decked out right now.
I love it. Thanks for the support. Appreciate it.
I met Jake at a round table with other brand founder CEOs in New York. And for background on Jake, so Jake is the founder or co-founder of Fair Harbor, which is a brand that he founded with his sister, Caroline Danehy, back when they were both still in college, which is, you guys are much more ambitious than I was in college. Also, you guys are both Forbes 30 under 30, EY Entrepreneur of the Year on your side, as well as CEO on your side, and your sister's creative director, or chief creative officer. So congratulations on all the success you've had so early in life.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So let's go back to the beginning. I really do want to start with this college thing. So what was it that made you decide, Bud Light and beer pong wasn't the thing, and founding a company was the thing?
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely had my fair share of. We had Keystone Lights at Colgate, so
Okay.
my fair share. But it's one of those things that actually it started a lot earlier than that. I grew up in this place called Fair Harbor in Fire Island, and basically grew up surfing and fishing and everything like that there. And because the Fire Island is a glorified sandbar, the island's about 27 miles long, but only about 100 yards wide. And so any plastic waste that wasn't disposed of correctly went to the waterways. And I love surfing and fishing and everything like that. And ultimately, that time in my life really resonated with me. It's like those amazing memories that we had with our family back in the day. And in college, I went in with the expectation of being an economics major. I played lacrosse as well. And I probably would have gone to finance or real estate or something like that, which a lot of my peers did, and my dad did. He went to Colgate, and he was an economics major and ended up going to real estate. And so kind of saw that path in front of me, but I honestly hated economics. And I was fine at it, but it was just like, I just didn't really excite me. And I remember I was in intro to economics. I'm like, all right, this is not for me. So I ended up taking geography classes. Geography is not just studying maps. It's about global ocean currents, climatology, how, micro economic sectors work together, and then on a macro scale, how societies evolve. And so it was a super interesting liberal arts degree. But a huge piece of that was environmental studies and how humans impact the environment. And a big thing that we learned about was the global Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And this is back in 2013 that we started learning about it. And I just really thought back to my childhoods in Fair Harbor and Fire Island and ultimately wanted to do something about it. And so ultimately ended up writing a thesis on plastic waste and affecting our oceans, our health, and our ecosystem. And in doing so, found a mill that was converting plastic bottles into yarn. And so at the same time, my sister Caroline had always been super into fashion, and actually the resident tree hugger of the family. So her bat mitzvah theme was actually sustainability. Where mine was ice hockey and lacrosse, hers was about sustainability, and all her furniture was made out of recycled magazines. So So basically she was the perfect co-founder for me, and
Yeah,
turned around, like,
yeah.
we need to do something about this problem. And so that's when we started.
Was that something that kind of came from your parents, or was that something that, you guys both independently kind of latched onto as a concept, kind of sustainability generally, right? You a little bit later, her a little bit earlier.
I don't think it came from our parents. Our parents always like loved being outside and doing things, but they were never really sustainability focused. I think it was really Caroline at an early age, and then for me, just wanted to protect our environment and the places that we really enjoyed.
Yeah, I was just reading about kind of some of the work they're doing on the Pacific Ocean garbage patch, and it's pretty cool. Some of the stuff that they're doing out there right now, some of the automated kind of drone technology they're using to collect it, and it's cool. It's cool to see people kind of band together around a common initiative. And you were ahead of your time. That was like 9 years ago, 10 years ago that you were
Yeah,
CEO.
yeah. So it's been great to see the progress that's being made, but still a lot more that needs to be done.
So talk to me a little bit about, so okay, so you decide to do this, right? So this is what we want to do. There's somebody creating yarn out of plastic bottles. We want to create this brand. What are the next steps when, because I think your sister was probably what, 19 when you guys decided to do this. So what were kind of the next steps? I mean, even today, I think it'd take me a minute to figure out how to start my own apparel brand. So,
Yeah, so she was a senior in high school. I was
oh,
a
wow.
junior in college at this point. And because I was a geography major, I had, no real business experience. My dad was in real estate and didn't really know the first thing about starting an apparel company. But we had this program at Colgate called Thought into Action. And so what they did is they basically paired up aspiring student entrepreneurs with actually real life alumni entrepreneurs, and we'd meet once a quarter, talk through our problems, and they'd really help us figure it out. So like they help us incorporate the business. Uh, I ended up finding a consultant who helped us with production. But the biggest thing was when I was a junior, we had the opportunity to pitch at a mock Shark Tank competition. So the
Oh,
university brought in Jessica Alba, MC Hammer, Neil Blumenthal from Warby Parker, Jennifer Hyman from Rent the Runway, and they ended up talking to the university. And then 4 students had the opportunity to pitch in front of them for funding. And so we ended up winning $20,000 in grant money to start the business. And so that helped with the first production run. And we had one board short, 5 different colors, 100 of each. And that was how we started the business.
that's cool. What was it about the board short that you're actually able to sell? Like, how did you actually, take the first 500 and go out and sell it? Get it in
So
front of people.
again, I just bootstrapped it. We threw them, and after I, finished the semester, just threw them in the back of my car with a plastic table and drove out to different beach towns and set up in parks and really talk to anyone and everyone that would hear our story, and learned just how to sell. And that rejection was okay, and you just had to sell better the next time.
Yeah, I mean, they say the most common path to being a CEO is sales, right? Because I think ultimately what it's about communication. It's about talking to people. It's about understanding, their perspective, et cetera. Um, yeah, that's awesome. And being rejected and failing, right? But
Yeah.
not letting that shatter your confidence. Very cool. Well, one of the things that really stood out to me, not to skip ahead too much,
Mhm.
but obviously you've seen a lot of success. I should have mentioned it earlier, but the last time we talked, I think you were north of $50 million in kind of net sales, which is really impressive. Congrats on that. Um, and one of the more interesting kind of sound bites was around kind of this unexpected consumer insight you had around your shorts, and then how you actually leaned into that, right, and how that was a big driver. So talk to me about that a little bit, specifically around the kind of board short.
Yeah, definitely. So we started the business with board shorts, which, I'm a surfer. I love board shorts. I've grown up in board shorts. And board shorts have a fixed waistband and they have nothing in them from a lining perspective. And, I think I learned firsthand how important it was to listen to customers. And these trunk shows were really what were incredibly imperative to do that, because in the first 3 years we'd done over 500 trunk shows, and so that was our really only source of revenue. We had a e-commerce site, but we weren't spending any marketing on it, so no one knew who we were or any way to find out about us. And so really this was our lifeblood, was going to these different places and pitching our product. And a common theme that I kept hearing was, particularly from women, were saying like, my husband and my kids absolutely hate mesh lining. Like, I don't even know why it exists. It's ruined vacations. Like, I have to cut it out. It's so wasteful, and like it makes my kids really unhappy. And I'm like, all right. I never set out to solve the mesh lining issue, but I just kept hearing this over and over again. And so what we ended up doing was making a swim trunk, elastic waistband with a built-in box brief liner that we marketed as "Not Your Dad's Swim Short," anti-chafe, fight the chafe. And it just took off for us. And it was an incredibly amazing insight to learn early on, because it's like, listen to the customer, hear what problems they're having and how you can provide a solution that you can understand in a matter of seconds. And so that's really, kind of the number one learning for us when we started, was just continue to listen. And this weird insight of fighting the chafe and replacing mesh lining with a super soft built-in box brief liner.
Yeah, and I think it's a great combination of, obviously the brand as a mission-driven brand when it comes to sustainability, but I think that you also have some kind of very unique utility built into the actual product itself, right? Based on a consumer need. I think, sometimes people can get caught up in just the mission part of it, right? Which is important, right? I think that people really connect with that. It's a story they remember, and it makes them feel better about, being a part of this community. But people also buy Patagonia stuff because it's just really good clothes, right? It's just like really sturdy and well built and well designed, and et cetera. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting that we spoke about, so we're at this round table, and I'll recap it for people. We're at this round table, and we're, supposed to be talking about, mostly direct to consumer advertising, right? Which is in everybody's mind, it's like, influencers, Facebook ads, all these things. And then you came out of left field with, I don't know, man, radio is killing it for us. It's like, radio? What is this, 1957? Like, what are we talking about here? And you're like, no, it's done really well for us. And I think it's even more surprising given that, the nature of your products is very visual, and it's a very visual brand. So talk to me a little bit about what made you decide to test radio in the first place? Mm-hmm. And then, once you kind of started testing it, just how does radio advertising work? I think most people that listen to this, including myself, never run a radio ad campaign. Like, I just don't know how that functions.
Yeah. So I think it really stems from how can you reach as many people as possible for the cheapest value possible. And radio is just an incredible way to do that. And we're very close with the team over at Untucked, and they advertised on radio early on and saw success with it. And it's really and I think it's important too, because it's how can you get your point across in a matter of seconds to convert a customer. And I think that's, people's attention spans are so small these days, and really helped us, even learning from those early trunk shows, people were intrigued by us because of sustainability, but it wasn't why they bought the product. They bought the product, to your point, because it was had this, attribute that made their life better. They didn't have, screaming kids or whatever on the beach. And so from a radio standpoint, we advertised with Sirius XM, and it was just able to tell our story at such a wide level at a pretty cheap CPM in terms of being able to people driving their cars during the summer and just getting out there and just hammering our mission of what we're trying to do. And we also partnered with Howard Stern and Bobby Bones to also to help tell that story through their voices, and just kind of continue to hit people over the head with it. And so, it was just a cheap way to reach lots and lots of people. And then we measured it from How Heard. So after you purchase from us, we have a How Heard survey, and people actually fill it out more than they don't. So
that's pretty cool. That's a good way to kind of capture it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that, it's fascinating. And it's it makes a lot of sense that you heard this from Untucked. I think it's a similar kind of, there's a lot of utility, easy to describe utility in there in terms of the actual product. And it's like, oh yeah, I mean, that's a problem I've had for a really long time. Like, swim trunks suck, particularly the ones with the mesh liner. Cool. Well, let's talk about some of the other channels of acquisition, right? So I know you're just getting started in the influencer space, so we can kind of, I think, put that to the side. But at the same time, I think that, from what I understand, you're north of $50 million gross on your e-commerce site. So obviously you've got both e-com and offline in terms of distribution channels. But that's a lot of revenue to be driving through your e-com site. So what are some of the tactics? So now you've figured out radio ads, and actually, I want you to talk about trunk shows after this too, but you figured out radio ads; those are working. We're kind of stepping up our distribution. What was it? What were some of the tactics that you think led to getting north of $50 million gross on your website?
It's we've done a lot of different things and tried to be as diverse as possible. Of course, we do spend on the gorillas in the room in terms of Facebook and Google, which are a lot of our spend, if not a majority of our spend. But just trying to, so catalog has been a big channel for us. And so really leveraging catalog to tell much more visual stories, hit a lot of our existing customers, drive their LTV, as well as been using it for prospecting, which has been nice, which has been productive for us. And we launched TV this year, so we were doing linear TV, which actually has been very productive. And so radio. One of my favorites is airplane banners. So we fly airplane banners on beaches, and so. Which is just perfect because you got such a captive audience in our ideal locations. And so, people are sitting on the beach, not really doing anything, and we fly airplane banners by them. So we did California, done both coasts of Florida, up and down the East Coast. So
what's, in terms of an airplane banner, like what's the cost of an airplane banner? And then there's got to be different levels, right? You get like a little banner, you get like the really big ones, like what
we
works
do
best?
for the big boys.
Yeah, for the big boys, yeah.
Yeah, we do. You can do. There's a bunch of different levels. You can do letters. So I don't know if you've seen letters go off of the tail. You can do letters plus. You can do letters plus a little image. You can do skywriting, but it's just. It's the same cost for flying. The only difference is actually the printing of the banner. And so we're like, all right, let's just invest in printing the banner and then we'll fly it as many times as we possibly can.
I love that. It's funny because I think it costs the banner, again, like you said, like one-time cost. You can use it over and over again. And then, the reality is flight costs aren't that much, right? Like it's not comparatively at least. I love the all the sneaky advertising techniques that you're testing out, like the non-traditional, not sneaky, but like non-traditional. It's that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the funny thing, they're conversational points, so people talk about them and they build the word of mouth.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you recently announced that you are becoming a B Corp, right? It's a B Corporation. So I'd love for you to talk about kind of, what's entailed in that process, right? What does that look like? And frankly, I've never talked to somebody about it, right? I actually don't know, even though it's become a very popular topic and very popular concept. I've just never asked anybody about it. I'm not even sure if I've talked to somebody who was a B Corp founder. I'm sure I have, but I just don't know, right? And so would love to understand what that process looks like. What's the rigor involved? What's the, what are the things that you have to do? And then separately, what was it that motivated you to do it, right? Because this is something that, theoretically is a cost to the business in terms of time and effort, and money, et cetera, that you've got to make sure that everybody's on board with when you decide to do it. So talk me through that.
Yeah. So I guess multiple questions there. An intern of ours 3 years ago at the end of her summer, suggested that we become a B Corp because we basically talk all about sustainability and building a better company. And she's like, well, then you need to actually stand behind what you preach. And so I was like, all right, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you saying that to us. And so Sophie, actually, she was a 2-time intern and now she works for us full time. So it took us 2.5 years to actually finish the process, just because, and which I actually really appreciate because it's a pretty strenuous process. They really look under everything and you have to provide a lot of information. So the first thing you have to do is you have to convert from a C Corp to a public benefit corporation. And so that's, as a C Corp, your only fiduciary responsibility is to investors and providing profits to investors. Whereas as a public benefit corporation, your also fiduciary responsibilities is for social and environmental good, as opposed. So that was, a big step. And then also, just making sure that, we did everything by the book. But for Fair Harbor in particular, we had always had that sustainability and kind of social conscience as the backbone of the business. And so we didn't really have to change anything. We just had to kind of go through all of the processes of providing the information, the proof that we actually do all of this stuff. And so, it took over 2.5 years, but I'm, proud to announce that I think it was in May that we're officially named a B Corp.
That's cool. What are examples of things that you have to meet in terms of standards to actually get that done? Like, what's the strenuous part of it?
Yeah, so fabric certifications, factory certifications. So like all of our factories are WRAP certified. All of our fabrics are traceable. Energy consumption, our employee handbook, making sure that we're giving people ample, vacation time, paternity policies, maternity policies, there's a lot of different things that we had to make sure that we had kind of our T's crossed and our I's dotted to that we, are really living up to what their expectations are from a B Corp standpoint. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, let's talk a little bit about kind of a topic that you and I talked about recently, right? Mm-hmm. So, for Tribe, when we founded it, we both kind of initially decided not to raise money. Then when we needed the money, we couldn't get it because we were kind of figuring things out. And then we grew very, very quickly and had access to capital, but really didn't raise a lot, right? So we would, essentially bootstrap the business. And so, when you had reached out, it was like, hey, I want to talk about this, right? And the topic is something that I think faces a lot of CEOs, brand founders, people in executive roles, is around this balance of growth versus profitability, right? So growth, if you hire an extra 10 salespeople and you run an extra 50, airplane banner ads, right? You spend more money and you're less profitable, but theoretically you should grow faster, right? And so, I know that's something that, and this topic in particular, I think comes up around, when there are significant changes either in the business or in the macroeconomic environment, right? And so for you, I know this is a balance that you're thinking about, right? Like, how much do I lean in one direction or the other? So I'd love for you to take kind of the people that are listening in through your thinking on that. Like, what was your process? And, what were some of the outcomes? And then I think in addition to that, obviously you've added, a large financial partner to the business fairly recently, right? So congratulations on that part. So how did you incorporate them into that thinking? What was their feelings and contributions?
Yeah, so when we first started, it was so we had that initial grant money from Colgate, which allowed us to invest in our first line of production, and then basically went out and actually physically sold our products, made a little bit of money, and we're like, okay, well, now we want to make another line. So we ended up doing a Kickstarter campaign in December of 2015, which helped us fund our second line of production, and then
you've done all the growth hacks. All the different.
I've tried everything, really, and so, and then we kind of so we took that, sold that. I graduated college in 2016, did it full time, just myself working in my parents' basement, and then in 2017, we're like, all right. We've already done 500 trunk shows at this point. We can't clone ourselves. So the only way to really grow is to focus on e-com, and that's a good way to amplify us. And so, but always really viewed e-com as just another distribution channel as opposed to the end all and be all. So we raised about $500,000, and the objective was to how can we learn how to grow an e-com business. And when I was raising that $500,000, we had an investor, this gentleman who I used to coach lacrosse for. I went and pitched him to invest to raise capital, and he's like, Jake, I don't want your I don't want your equity. He's like, you need to learn how to run a fundamental business, because he's like, if you just raise too much money right now, you won't learn how to actually build a business. And so he said, I won't buy your equity, but what I will do is I will help you finance your inventory, because you need to learn how to turn inventory. And so he gave me a certain amount of money. He said, you can have this, buy your inventory, and you need to pay me back after you sell it. And so I went to sleep every night thinking about this gentleman, that I had to pay him back after the season. And because I had to do that and finance our inventory with debt financing as opposed to equity, I was just very kind of cautious and scrappy in terms of how we actually sold the product. And so we turned inventory. So we did that from 2017 all the way until 2019, growing substantially year after year, but making sure that we made profits and that we were profitable on the first purchase. And so that was kind of very fundamental for the business and how we were able to grow, and just learning good business fundamentals. And so, that was really from day one, being, valuing our dollars and valuing our money, and continuing to build that way.
Have you read Shoe Dog?
I have. There's actually a couple copies behind me right now.
Yeah. For those that don't know, it's the book about
one of my favorite books of all time.
Wait, say that again?
I said it's one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, it's a great one. And for those that don't know, right, so it's a book about Phil Knight. Is it an autobiography or a biography?
He wrote it, so I believe that's autobiography.
And so it just reminded me so much of, during his early days. This was kind of pre-venture capital, access to high-risk capital. And, he would sell every shoe he had, and then use every dollar he had left from those shoes to buy the next round, and just kept doing that over and over again. And, it was just, it was a crazy time. The rate at which his business was growing and the fact that he couldn't get access to capital was like wild, right? But I think it ended up making him, better business person. So another topic that I think is really interesting when I look at kind of your business is obviously the relationship between you and your sister, right? And so, and I don't know if, I'm not sure if you've read it, but The Founder's Dilemma by Noam Wasserman. Have you read that book before?
I haven't, no.
Okay. It's a really good one, right? So what he did was he studied, it was like 10,000 different high growth businesses. Studied 10,000 different high growth businesses and looked at them every year for 10 years in a row, right? And then what he did was looked at the kind of founding relationship. So what was the pre-existing relationship of the founders when they created the brand? And then tried to figure out kind of what predicted success. And so it's like, okay, it's better to have 2 founders than 4, than 1, right? Because 2, there's enough equity to go around, versus 4, it's a little bit too, it's a little bit too split up. One of the things he looked at was how do the founders know each other, right? And so, and it showed a ranking of success, right? So the best was coworkers. So if you're former coworkers, highest kind of prediction of success. Then then was friends, then was random acquaintances, then was family, right? So family was 4th out of that list. And, what he pinned it down to was, when you go into business with a family member, you have a pre-existing relationship that you're trying to protect that makes it very hard to give the other person critical feedback. It's the same thing to a lesser degree with a friend, right? Where like there's a pre-existing relationship you have with that friend that you don't want to harm, right? By giving them critical feedback. So I'd love to hear about kind of how you and your sister have worked together, because obviously you're coming up on, quite a few years of working together now, and it seems to be going really well. So what's the rhythm that you've found that works well in terms of you guys being able to work together even when times aren't ideal? I'd love for you to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I need to read that book. That sounds super interesting. But I've worked with friends, I've worked with siblings, and I've worked with actually random acquaintances in terms of our entire founding process. And, by far and away, working with Caroline has been the best relationship out of those. And I think what we realized at a really early stage was, number one, we respect each other tremendously. And then we also have differing skill sets. And because of that, that has really allowed us to be great business partners. I really trust her through and through from a creative standpoint, from a photography standpoint, from a copy standpoint. She's just really, really good at that. And she trusts me from a production standpoint, from an e-com standpoint, from a sales standpoint. And so we really, I think, complement each other well. Where it hasn't worked in the past is when we've had kind of equals that have similar skill sets. And that's where really I've seen heads start to bump. But because Caroline and I don't have the same things that we're good at and focused on, we really trust each other to do those things well.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like there's a mutual kind of respect for what the other person does and the fact that they're actually good at that job, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so last question, and then we'll get into some fun kind of end of show questions. Mm-hmm. So, one of the other topics we've talked about is kind of the decision around being CEO, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's fairly common for younger CEOs, when you do see this meteoric rise early on, to hand off the reins, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's, Ben at Gymshark or the co-founders of Google or whatever it is, right? And so I know that's something that you've thought a lot about, right? And I think you're doing a great job as CEO and want to continue doing that, right? So which mm-hmm. makes sense. How do you think about that decision moving forward? And what were some of your thought processes kind of prior to that in kind of previous stages of the business?
Yeah, I think it's really, Caroline and I have a tremendous vision for where we want the business to go. And I think at the current point, it's still putting a lot of those puzzle pieces in place in terms of the right people involved from a creative standpoint, from a product standpoint, from an operation standpoint, and making sure that, our vision is really at the core of what we're building. And I believe that I'm the right person at the moment to really bring those people together and move it forward. I'm not opposed to the conversation down the line if there is someone that's better than me from an operational standpoint. But at the current moment, in terms of where we're going and the products that we're building, like I'm a true merchant in terms of production and product and making sure that we have the right product. And so being in that role, I think, is important, at least for the time being. But there will be different levers of growth that we'll want to unlock, and I might not be the right person to do that. But for the current time, I think between me and Caroline at the helm are the right people for our business.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is the big vision? So you say we have a vision for where we want to take it. Like, what is that? If you feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, of course. We want to be the next iconic American heritage brand. We want to be with our customers 365 days a year. We want to build better products and have a stronger relationship with our customers than I think incumbent brands do. And we want our brand to consistently have a soul. So it's really from a lot of different customer touch points. From retail is a strong initiative of ours. Wholesale, continuing to build that out, as well as really optimizing our e-com business. But women's, we've had a really strong start with, and we're excited about expanding that further and continuing down that path, as well as kids has been awesome for us. So really building a great, wholesome family brand for every member of the family is what our true vision is, and doing it the right way, sustainably and with great products.
Yeah, you mentioned kids earlier. I think that you're certainly reaching the parental audience on radio. I can tell you that much. So that's good.
Yeah, the kids at least don't have access to their credit cards yet. So we need to get the moms.
I remember a brand I talked to that was, definitely for kids, right? Their biggest problem was that they would, they had a lot of YouTube content, and they had a huge drop off right at checkout because kids didn't have a credit card, right? They would come in, want to buy it, just not have a credit card or not have their parents' credit card. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's do kind of one fun end of show question. So, you said that you used to like to kind of surf, be outdoors, do all those things. Are you still able, as the CEO of a very fast growing brand, able to kind of take time out, or is it something that's kind of gone by the wayside?
Man, it was, I wish I could say I surf a lot. So 3 years ago, actually it's 4 years ago at this point, I got 82 days in New York. Yep. And that's a lot. But that was like literally just me working by myself, and my sister was still in college. And so I was living at my parents' house, and I had access to a car and I would just drive out before work most mornings. It's been more challenging to do that now. So I haven't been, there's just a couple more moving parts. So, but I'm looking forward to getting back in the water soon.
Yeah, that's the Let My People Go Surfing, right?
Yeah.
Is it Yvon Chouinard? Is that his name?
Yeah, that's another one of my favorite reads.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a good one. Well, I really appreciate you taking out the time, Jake, and thank you so much again for the great gear on my side, both stuff that I purchased and stuff that you sent to me. I'm excited to continue to watch the success and stay in touch as you guys build this next great American heritage brand. Should be exciting.
Well, thanks for having me, Connor. I really appreciate it and glad you like the gear.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake.
Be a friend, tell a friend, and subscribe. Earned by Creator IQ. Creator IQ is your all-in-one solution to grow, manage, scale, and measure your influencer marketing program. Ready to unlock the power of the creator economy? Get started with a demo today at creatoriq.com.